Guys, and welcome back to another episode of Your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Shurina. I'm your host, I'm your brains coach, and just someone with a lot of passion and energy and enthusiasm, obviously, for helping you guys to learn, get familiar, and start practicing all the brain tools you can use to feel, look, and do your absolute best. Because it's all in your brain, guys. Whether you're trying to grow your business, where you're trying to build better relationships, whether you're trying to get better at health and fitness, it's all in the brain. How you approach making decisions and making changes in your habits, in your lifestyle, right? That changes that are consistent, because just like with shower, if you want to get consistent results, you gotta take it daily. You gotta, with some habits, it's not every day, but you gotta practice certain things regularly for results to stay. Today, guys, we're gonna talk about energy. And how, in a simple way, you can get more of it. Like literally, you can help your body and your brain make more energy. And with that comes more of everything. Meaning you're gonna get better at building habits, at growing your business and creating better relationships. Because when we are in a high energy state, we are more likely to approach any situation with a problem solving mindset. Because when we have no energy, our brain knows that, or our energy reserves are low, and the brain doesn't allow us to take a lot of action. And because of that, we tend to complain or say it's impossible or blah blah blah. We have a lot of stories, but one of the main reasons why so many people have so many stories is not that it's their fault. It's just their body, their brain do not produce sufficient amount of energy. And because of that, the brain adjusts the settings so we take less actions. And that's why I create all the stories, etc. Back to energy. There is a new book that just came out by Chris Palmer. He is a practicing, I think, physician and psychiatrist, and he has a lot of degrees, really great education. And he's now in almost everyone's podcast about health, self-development, mental health, everywhere, right? His book is, again, Brain Energy. And the subtitle has to do with a lot of mental disorders. But for me, when I saw this title and I listened to Chris talking to hosts on different podcasts like Tim Ferriss or Andrew Huberman's, for me, I realized that Chris is getting to the point that brain energy and how optimized our brain for producing sufficient amount of energy, like everything depends on that. Mental illness is just, something that he worked with and something that a lot of people these days can relate to. And he helps people to optimize their brain's energy producing power, so to speak, to improve their mental health, their mental disorders. And he uses nutrition, right? On this podcast, we've talked so much about nutrition and how important it is for basically everything. The wrong thinking from people who are not in nutrition world is that, nutrition, food is fuel, right? As long as I'm getting fuel, I'm going to be okay. The right kind of thinking is actually quite different. Food is not just fuel, even though it is also what every single cell in our body and in our brain are made of. And just like if you're trying to build a house or a cathedral, if the quality of those ingredients that you're building yourself every day from, literally, if the quality is low, the output is also going to be low. There is no magic in this life. You put low quality in, you're going to get low and lower quality out. The same with energy. Certain foods are better at being metabolized as energy, but also helping you to maintain high energy status, helping you to maintain high health status. And all of that increases the available energy for your every action, for your every decision, and even for your different mental states. Guys, the mind-blowing idea in this book that's going to be popularized in the next, weeks, months, and years, it's going to be more and more you're going to hear about that, even though on this podcast I've been talking about this for ages. So the mind-blowing idea is that when your body and brain are incapable to produce sufficient and adequate energy amounts, you're gonna get, in many cases, mental issues. Sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's blue moods, sometimes it's something even worse like schizophrenia. When our brain doesn't produce sufficient amount of energy, again, what happens is, sorry for the interruption, guys. We have some noise here outside of my apartment today. So when the brain doesn't produce enough energy, there is this mind-blowing idea you want to understand and you want to carry with you guys. When the brain doesn't have enough energy, your brain senses that your body, your brain, for one reason or the other, do not produce enough energy. What happens is, and I've already talked about this on this podcast, but from this book, Brain Energy, you can read more about that, how this inefficient energy producing mechanism in your body and your brain cause this blue moods, depression, and all kinds of mental disorders. Insufficient energy, and the brain is the most energy hungry organ in our body. First of all, the brain gives you depression for one simple reason. When we are depressed, we are so much less likely to take action and to spend that energy that we don't even have, right? It's actually very logical. And in this book, Brain Energy, Chris Palmer is talking about this concept that not everybody agrees with at this point, but from the data that he collected, from a logical perspective, and from a lot of anecdotal data of other people, podcast hosts that like Tim Ferriss, it seems that it's exactly true. And I can tell you from my personal experience, when I didn't optimize my nutrition, and if there are some days when my nutrition gets suboptimal for one reason or the other, I start feeling that, a little bit more anxiety, a little bit less confidence. That especially happens, with a bad night of sleep. And then it affects all of the actions and interactions you're going to have in your day. And this, when done consistently, when you have lower energy levels consistently, changes the course of our lives. These days, I talk a lot about leadership and technology that can accelerate progress in our world, in our life. And a lot of people want to help to grow leaders. A lot of, great business people, a lot of leaders want to help to grow more leaders, right? So we build better world for everyone. But the problem is that if you don't address the health, the physical and mental health, you will not be able to grow that many leaders, because biology always comes first. Biology always comes first, guys. So when you have something not working in your body, when you have insufficient energy levels, energy is the currency of life, you're going to be less likely to think about changing the world, becoming great leader, exponential, or some other sort of leader, right? Because when you have a low energy status, your brain will optimize you, quote unquote, in a way that you take less action. And leadership is all about taking more action than expected of you. So Brain Energy, I picked up the book, started reading it. As soon as I'm done with this book on sales, this week I'm finishing Brain Energy and will report to you all the most interesting findings. But as a practical takeaway for you guys, besides the understanding that energy is everything, energy is your work, is your relationships, is your personality, it's your life. If you don't optimize for energy, your body, your brain, you will not be able to express your full potential that I personally am so passionate about. You will not be able to express all of your talents and all of your passions. If you feel like you have so much more to contribute, but for some reason you're not able to, the reason might be not optimized machinery. And of course, there is an environment and there are other factors, but biology always comes first. You cannot run away from your own body, from your own brain. So how do you get more energy? There are, of course, many factors that come into energy creation equation. But one of the core things that a lot of people, you might not be one of those people because you've been listening to this podcast for a while. A lot of my listeners are very long-term listeners. You might understand that, but a lot of people still do not understand that to create energy, you don't just need to eat food with calories. You actually need to have certain micronutrients like vitamins and minerals to get that energy from your food and to put it to use. Like, for example, magnesium that most people are deficient in. Magnesium is actually a core element in the process of energy creation of ATP. That is the major molecule of energy in our cell, in our body, right? If we are not optimizing for creating as much ATP as we possibly can create in these conditions, if we are not providing enough magnesium, like literally without magnesium, this is not going to be happening. Hopefully and luckily, most of us are getting some magnesium, but more, in not like as much as possible, but in certain amounts, more is definitely better. And getting optimal amount from food only, for most people, it is not possible. And if you are into high performance lifestyle and life, and you want to do more, contribute more, and you want to be really active, like a lot of people ask me, Sheila, how do you have so much energy? Like whenever I see you, you're full of energy, whether it's night, morning, or whatever, right? Unless I'm sleeping. But that's because I took all of my knowledge as a nutritionist, as a integrative health professional, and a performance coach. I took all of my knowledge of neuroscience, and I put it into practice. And I do supplement with magnesium, for example. Why I'm talking about magnesium? Because guys, do supplement with magnesium. You're not going to be getting optimized amounts from food on a regular basis. Yeah, you can eat greens and, there is some in nuts and seeds and in fish and a lot of foods. That's why, again, most people do get some. That's why people aren't dying. But if you don't get enough sufficient amount of magnesium, you're going to promote worse, less optimized mental states. You're going to physically less able. Your sleep might get worse. Any sorts of activity and any sorts of health situation will get worse with suboptimal amounts of magnesium in your diet, right? So I usually recommend what is recommended amount to supplement with for 500 milligrams. Better if it's spread out. There are different forms of magnesium. And if you need advice, please do get in touch. For me, it's super easy to just look up on Amazon some good brands that are available on your area, and I will help you to get one. It's not expensive, and it will improve your energy levels by so much. It happened that way that last week I ordered my magnesium a little bit later, so I didn't get it for 2 days. There was a period when I wasn't supplementing, and I felt that like right away. And it's not like I was thinking about that magnesium. No, I just felt that my sleep was worse and I had less energy. And for some people, it might be huge difference. For some people, it might be a little bit of difference. But magnesium, it is needed to create, to synthesize protein, to create energy, to duplicate your DNA, to restore your DNA. Every time you duplicate your cells, you need to build up DNA structure in that cell, and magnesium is also needed for that. Magnesium is involved in every single reaction. Like whenever you need energy or protein, you need magnesium, right? So supplement with that. Need advice? Please do get in touch. And back to that energy, guys. Chris was saying on the podcast that not everyone was helped with the diet that he promotes to improve energy metabolism in the brain. And I have a feeling that if those people who specific diet that he advisors didn't help, maybe they needed a little bit more help on micronutrients, because again, it might help to, of course, to remove all the processed foods. It will help increase consumption of unprocessed foods, but then also micronutrients. Maybe they need to optimize for that, for things like magnesium, right? There are many variables that could come into this equation of energy into our body and our brain. But what you want to understand again, guys, If you want to optimize for high performance life, if you want to optimize for leadership, if you want to have energy every day and be in great mood to get after challenges, your biology is not an option. You need to optimize for higher output when it comes to energy in your body and in your brain. Even your thoughts and your decisions depend on that. And that's about it, guys. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Let me know if you have any questions. Brain Energy, Chris Palmer, pick up his book. I'm going to be interviewing him on my podcast sometime soon. I already sent out the emails. So I just can't wait to ask all the questions that I have about his practice with patients and the experience that he got and how he did his work. But that's, my geeky stuff. Guys, again, if you have any questions about that, about his book, about his work, about magnesium, please do reach out. But please do understand that everything you do in life depends on how optimize your body and your brain for energy creation. And magnesium is just one of those things, but very important one, guys. Very, very important. That will help you to optimize your life for higher energy, higher output, leadership, and impactful actions. That's it. You'll hear from me very soon. Tomorrow we're gonna be talking about change and why it's so hard for many people and some practical tips and tools for you to use to get through the change easier. So stay tuned for that. And till then, have a day full of energy and get some magnesium.